Oh, hi, and welcome to Momentous Live episode 155. It's true because it rhymes. I'm Tristan Jutra.
I'm Will Silver.
And I'm Gray Williams. Do not disassemble.
Duly noted.
It's a little Johnny Five.
Yeah, so if you want to find out about this thing that we do here, you can visit us at www.momentous.tv. There it is. And there it is. Look at all those things. And look, there's last week's episode. Yeah, let's jump into a little bit of follow-up to get things started here. A few months ago, we were talking about a little service called Beeper. And Beeper is a multi-platform messaging service, sort of like Adium, or was it Trillium was one of the other ones back in the day when we were lamenting the plethora of incompatible messaging services like ICQ and Yahoo Messenger and AOL Instant Messenger and MSN Messenger, et cetera. So remember the good old days? And now we've got a whole bunch of other incompatible messaging services, and Beeper was a modern solution to try and help us through that. And one of the things they did a few months ago was some little shenanigans to try to make it seem that even if you weren't on an iOS device like an iPhone, that you appear, if you had an Android device, you could appear as a blue bubble chat participant to your iPhone loving friends and those on other Apple devices such as iPads and Macs. And like I said, there was some little bit of trickery involved, and of course, predictably, Apple plugged the vulnerabilities that Beeper was using, and hilarity ensued. So that really put a damper on their aspirations there. As such, it turns out that all the things that they're trying to do, engineering-wise, for their legit, consolidation of messaging into single apps and their gray area efforts, it takes a lot of money, a lot of engineering efforts. So they have recently sold to Automatic with 2 T's. That is the owner of WordPress.com. I believe didn't they buy Tumblr last year as well? They've been gobbling up a few companies. So the WordPress empire, called Automatic, is now the owner of Beeper. Gray, any thoughts on what this represents for the future of Beeper? WordPress is, famously open source. They're trying to do good things for the better of the web generally, and have made quite an impact, especially as WordPress still, is responsible for hosting about half of the world's websites.
The other half being on Squarespace.
Exactly. We should have a promo code.
Looking at this, you know what? Kind of, it's a gut feeling, like a disturbance in the force. I feel like there is a non-federated, open source, non-douchey social network that's going to come out of this.
Well, an entire new platform, you figure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Look at it. Right. You have content hosting that is unique to the individual. Right. You have the interconnectedness of Tumblr. You have the messaging service of Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp. All they need to do now is go and rescue Flickr. And we're back. Seriously, though, I see all the pieces here. This could be, we keep wondering, like, where will the next social network come from that's not the CCP? And the answer is possibly this. Big, strong pieces that when you put those Legos together, make a social network.
Well, apparently this deal was worth $125 million.
Oh, cheap.
According to sources. Yeah, super cheap, right? What, compared to $19 billion for that Facebook, now Meta, paid for WhatsApp. Obviously, we're talking a different scale here. But apparently, this somehow slipped past us. This is Automatic's second acquisition of a cross-platform messaging solution. They bought another one called Texts.com last fall. So they are really bulking up in this department. William, how frustrated have you been over the last number of years and or decades with the diversity, and they usually say diversity is our strength in a number of things, but with messaging platforms and not to mention video conferencing platforms and whatnot, there are so many different options, most of which aren't compatible with one another. What are your day-to-day frustrations with this, whether it's blue bubbles and green bubbles with the Android people, some people on WhatsApp, some people, then there's the whole Teams thing. I don't know if anyone's still using Skype, and then like how has it affected your life on a day-to-day basis that these sorts of multi-platform solutions may be able to help?
I don't know. It doesn't bother me that much. I mean, it's definitely, we're having dinner at the same time, are we? I was
Someone's busted.
I was distracted. So first here. It definitely is something that you encounter trying to jury rig things together, but no, it doesn't really bother me all that much. I think I mentioned the text bubbles thing with my wife, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty quickly overcome, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. I have a couple of friends that are on WhatsApp and they insist on using that for some reason. I'm like, if I had my druthers, everything would just be on, I know SMS is not secure, but just like stick to general texting. And if you're on an Apple device, you're benefiting from the iMessage platform, great. And then once Apple and the consortium and Google and everyone kisses and makes up about RCS, that will be fine. And hopefully a lot of these other things can go away. I just find it kind of exhausting, and maybe that's just my advanced age. But we had similar issues back in the day with, like I said, these other sort of pre-mobile phone or pre-smartphone platforms like ICQ and all those other messenger platforms. But now we have the same kind of thing too. I forgot to mention even like Facebook Messenger is current. Some people insist on sending me stuff through Facebook. I don't want to have to check a whole bunch of different apps. I don't know. Everyone needs something to get worked up about, and I just need to touch grass. All right.
Good times.
I'm glad it's not bothering you that much. In other follow-up, here's something that can make us angry. You ready for this one, Gray? So we've talked a bit about Roku and one of the ways that they've been able to get us some affordable TVs, very, very cheap TVs. Well, the way they do that is by tracking, people's activities or viewing habits through the smarts in their TV. And they have, that's one of the reasons why we've encouraged people to shop for the best possible picture quality and avoid the smarts if you can. Leave your smarts to a device like an Apple TV box or a Chromecast or a Fire TV stick or something like that. I'm partial to the Apple TV stuff, of course, being bad with money and in the bag for Apple. But Roku has found a way, even if you are using some of these other boxes. It's not been applied yet, but they've developed filed a patent that invents a way to show ads over anything you plug into your TV. So even if you're trying to avoid all this stuff, they'll figure out a way, and the details are still coming out. But they've got all sorts of diagrams and whatnot on the patent filing, and if you're trying to do an end run around the built-in smart TV features of the Roku and not use their built-in apps like Netflix, Disney, Apple TV Plus, and the like, and you're trying to use your own box for those, Roku is trying really hard. Since you got your deal on that TV, they're still going to find a way to get some ads in front of you as well, and can try to continue to harvest your data. Gray, Roku, is it just me, or did Roku used to be a fine, upstanding young audio streaming company that eventually got into, streaming boxes? And then it seems like since they got into the TV business, they've gone to the dark side.
Yeah. It's a couple of things. It does sound like a sad, sordid tale of an honest, country folk out there trying to make their way in the world only to find their way seduced by advertising being inserted into their veins. I will say this, though. I'm impressed that they're committing to the advancement of proctology to this degree. Because if I get a TV like this, it's going straight up somebody at Roku's ass.
Wow, that escalated quickly.
As you do. That's my HDMI input. This TV better be better than free. If you're putting a television on my wall that plays ads on my DVD player, my Xbox, my PlayStation, my NES Classic, right up the ass.
So we'll see if it actually comes to fruition.
It won't. They don't have a death wish. They don't have like people would die because this is insane. I'm gonna interrupt. Like I just interrupted you. Interrupt your programming to play an ad. That's it. I'd go full like Michael Douglas falling down. I would go just network. Just yeah.
Next thing you know, there's Christelle Cerveit's product placements in your Star Wars movies.
Give me some face paint. I'm gonna go dance with Gaga.
Yeah, that was a callback. Oh, I see. You had a call forward.
Boom.
All right. Well, what do you think? Do you think it's like, well, with all these sorts of things, if you're off, like Amazon did this, not something in this, not quite this egregiously, but a similar vein whereby you want to pay $30 less for a Kindle, you're going to get some ads on the screen, like the rest screen or the lock screen, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And you either you're saving money or you're paying with your money and to get rid of those, or you're paying with your attention, however passively, just like those of us who may opt for the cheaper versions of Netflix. Again, you pay with your money to avoid the ads, or you pay with your time and attention to watch the ads. Now, as we see these technical ways for companies to try to make sure that if you've benefited from the discount, in this case, the TV, and you try to avoid the things that are subsidizing that business model, that they're going to find a way to continue to track you or get some ads in front of you. I mean, do you feel that they're within their rights to do that, since you kind of already, you're taking advantage of the reduced price there? Or is this going to these sorts of ideas going too far? And you have the right to be able to avoid the stuff that you're getting the deal for.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate Gray's rant. I saw it incoming, and I enjoyed it very much. No, I mean, I'm with him on that it's horrible and they're evil for doing it. But I think I said this last week, which is, when you buy something like this, you are sort of, like you say, having this agreement where you're putting up with it, but it's not great, and it should be fully flushed out, and I don't love it, and they shouldn't be able to do it, but I guess that's the way it is. But like I said last week, to quote Team America World Police, freedom isn't free. So, yeah, I mean, you get what you pay for to a certain extent. And I just wouldn't buy a free TV myself, but
or a discounted one. It's interesting. The technology described in the patent basically detects whether the content is paused, and then if there's no audio being played, a pause signal will pass through to their system. It'll analyze the paused image and use metadata to identify one or more objects in the video frame, transmit that information to a network, and then receive and display a quote unquote relevant ad over top what the pause content is. So if this is only happening once we've hit pause, maybe it's, again, depending on how much cheaper that TV actually was. Now,
I just want to like the relevant ads.
Mm-hmm.
The relevant ads.
Oh, yes.
Terminator 3, you got Schwarzenegger carrying the coffin, and you're gonna get a funeral home ad. It's just terrible.
All right, let's move on to some other news. Speaking of tracking, this is hopefully the good kind of tracking. Some of us have been using devices such as Tile. There was also Tracker, TR, CKR, and these were little key fobs and other types of small devices that you could add to personal belongings of yours, that were especially valuable ones. If you ever misplace them, then you could benefit from everyone who's running the software for said fobs on their phones, and you have this kind of ad hoc network to help you locate those devices. That, as a lot of us predicted, got sort of that market got heavily disrupted by Apple once they finally expanded their Find My network, that we've been able to find, quote unquote, find our devices, be our iPhones, our iPads, our Macs, or eventually our Apple Watches and the like, through similar technologies, but benefiting from the immense user base, especially the iPhone install base worldwide. And then a few years ago, Apple finally announced their version of the fob, the AirTags. And I've got one in my wallet. You can put, got one in one of our remote controls, one in each of our cars. Some people put them in little collars for their pets and the like. There's been a little bit of controversy about privacy and the like, and Apple has added some privacy affordances in there because don't use these kinds of things to stalk people. But it's really Apple's large footprint in the space has really borne out and demonstrated the value of said footprint for this kind of system, and it really can help you find stuff, because there are so many these devices out there that are can act as passive locators without compromising your privacy per se, but just help to triangulate the location of your devices. Well, as has been talked about for a better part of a year now, Google is launching their system. Apparently, they had been in talks with Apple to have some sort of cross-platform approach, but Apple has kind of been dragging their feet a little bit, kind of like they have been on RCS as well. So Apple, Google, with their Android Bluetooth trackers are just, they're just going to finally ship in late May. And, if they and Apple can finally sit down to enable, maybe via software or firmware, some of the cross-platform features, so that you can benefit not only from all the Apple devices out there, but all the Google Android devices out there too. Well, that would seem like a win-win for everyone. Of course, those with the pre-existing network benefit the least, because there goes a unique selling point, kind of why Apple hasn't opened up the iMessage platform, right? So, Gray, what do you think this represents for the lost item market? We've seen Apple and Google take different approaches with these sorts of things. They maybe have some different demographic profiles of their user base. Do you think that at this point the Android based Find, it was called Find My Device, great name there. It's kind of obvious, but it's obviously pretty similar to I guess Apple wasn't able to get trademark on that name per se. Do you think this is going to be a game changer for Google Android users, or are they even going to take notice?
To be honest, like a lot of my friends with Android have at some point lost a device somewhere in the room. Having something like this I hate having a feature on my watch or my phone that I love that seems like I'm showing off. So I'm glad
do you really hate showing off though?
Well, yeah, it's awkward.
Excuse me while I track my device using my watch.
I don't care what anybody else uses. Just like to be able to where my phone is, because I've got ADHD, and where the hell did I put it? I had it in my hand 2 seconds ago. Hang on. Let's
Will, we had lost you.
Found it.
There you go. Go. Great job.
Nice.
Well, somehow, I don't know if I'd accidentally turned you off for a minute or what, but we lost you, and now you're back. Hopefully you heard what we were talking about there about the tracking devices. Mm-hmm. Do you have any AirTags yourself?
Yeah, I do. We have a couple, I think, that we mostly put in luggage. Yeah.
How excited is your family that maybe now you'll have Android capable versions, and maybe at some point in the magical future, your lovely wife will be able to track your AirTags, and you would be able to track any Android ones that she bought because she refuses to get Apple products.
Oh God, don't say that. She does listen to the show, and you just trolled her. But anyways, she has an Android one, and we have a couple Apple ones. So I control the Apple ones, and she controls the Android ones. So.
Well, now there's some first-party ones actually coming, made by Google. So. Even better, I suppose, because that was the problem with Tile, is that you're only visible by those other Tile users, right? Mm-hmm. And that's only so many people in the world. But with iOS, it didn't matter if people were AirTags users per se. It's just anyone who was running an Apple device out there could help track your devices. So I don't know. I think it's a good thing to have these features on both sides. Competition is good, and interoperability will be even better. Although then these companies have to compete on different aspects of them. You can have common standards, just like email is a common standard, and we've got different email clients. The HTTP is a common standard. We've got different web browsers out there. So come on, Apple. It's time to play ball. Google's tired of waiting for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This news is a little bit. Oh, it's only a couple of weeks old. There's related to something else that I've been hanging on to for a little while, but some recent news. Vinyl records outsell CDs for the second year running. Can you believe it? All the we thought it was just hipsters buying vinyl. I remember back in the 90s when my friend of the show, Sam, and we were still buying vinyl. And then I started buying more and more CDs, and he was hanging on to vinyl. And then he went full into CDs. And then anyone who was buying vinyl after that, they're like, oh, well, there's, all the bandwagon jumpers, people from the last, 10 years or so, not to mention all the people started buying cassettes. I mean, that just seemed kind of crazy, because what's even the benefit aside from a souvenir or collectible kind of thing? You'd see bands jumping onto this to provide more things for their fans to buy. And sure, it's hard out there for a pimp nowadays. I mean, a musician. So you've got to give your fans different things to buy, because to show their support, different kinds of merch, and not just T-shirts and hoodies and hats. We've got lots of bands are doing vinyl now, and that's kind of exciting. Well, as it turns out, CDs are a minuscule part of the music market nowadays. It's crazy. Streaming represents 84% of revenues, which is, as of 2023. Physical media, 11%. Digital downloads, so that would be like buying songs from the iTunes store and the 3%. And sync, 2%. I'm not sure what sync means. So this is sort of an entry way to talk about what I really wanted to talk about. And this is really cool. Glowing turntable designed by Brian Eno. We had this, been holding on to this story for a little bit. Apparently, was involved in designing this turntable, and they were selling them at auction. Some of them as high as £20,000. And that there's I think he was at a co-creator, Paul. Maybe Paul Stolper is just the website there, but I think all three of us have turntables of various vintages and capabilities. How much, Gray, would you pay for a turntable that looks quite like this?
Probably looking, I think maybe $60 worth of materials, probably about 3 or 4 hours of my time. I'd need to source the either belt or direct drive, maybe $300.
So for £20,000, we could buy a whole lot.
You want a couple? Because I can fire some off the 3D printer here in just a couple minutes.
Looking forward to seeing them on as a future project in a future project segment here on Momentous Live.
Challenge accepted. Did I mention I went to IKEA on the weekend?
No.
And their record players, their $200 record players, were for $60. They're clearing them out.
Are they any good?
Yeah, they're decent. It's the Swedish House Mafia. So,
Will, what's your turntable collection looking like nowadays? I know you got plenty of mixers.
Yeah, I've never been as big a turntable guy. If we're talking strictly turntables and not controllers, I think I have six turntables. 2 Techniques, 2 Vestux, a Reloop, and a Stanton.
You're a man of taste. Man of taste.
Do you have any ones that are solid acrylic slabs with built-in LED lights that can change colors, though?
No, it's cool, but I'm not. Yeah, I mean, it's a gimmick, and I'm not big into the audiophile type of turntables, so I wouldn't know what to do with that.
Is it also a Roomba? It appears to be a Roomba.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could put your cat on it and see what happens. So Brian Eno's Turntable 2, which we're referring to, is made up of a platter and base, which change colors independently, seamlessly phasing through combinations of generative colorscapes. The pattern of lights, the speed at which they change, and how they change are programmed, but programmed to change randomly and slowly. And it plays both at 33 and 45 RPM vinyl. So if you've got your 78 RPM shellac 10-inch discs from the early 1900s, you're out of luck, as are your 16 RPM children's story records like I had back in the 70s.
All right.
But
I will make this
Awesome.
thing, and it will be able to do those speeds.
perfect. Those are highly in demand as well. So, Gray, you found another story that's kind of relevant to the whole vinyl side of things, because one of the key features of compact discs and later incarnations of digital music was the pristine audio. No longer did we have clicks and pops, and not to mention motor hums from poorly grounded turntables and the like. But one of the ways to avoid clicks and pops is by good vinyl hygiene. What were some of the things that were mentioned in this video that you've shared with us here?
Yeah, so one of the interesting things is just the pure science of it. Vinyl basically accumulates a negative charge. Negative charge attracts dust. Dust gives you clicks and pops. So there are, I think there's like a $300, it looks like a toaster that you stick your records into. And it will wash your records, which is great. Seems a little excessive though. He was saying basically just using a record brush. And then there's a little handheld device he's got that actually cancels out static electricity.
I think my ex-stepdad had one of those back in the day, and it was just like a little gun that you point at the vinyl, but you don't really see or notice anything happening. It's like, is this even working, or is this just a snake oil? But it's basically kind of removing the static charge, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and he was able to measure the static charge, and then after reviewing the sound, when measuring sound, was able to prove that yes, there is an audible difference, not just to audiophiles, but to us mere mortals as well. So there you go. Brush your records, give them a bit of a de-zap. If you want to give them a bath, you can. There it is.
Well,
monster cables.
I do have one of those zappers. I think it worked. It didn't get rid of as much static as I wanted to, because one of my issues is static cling of elements like the slip mat to the actual record itself. So it didn't relieve it enough to notice any huge difference for me, but I did notice a little bit, at least notice in terms of the static cling, but I did notice some audio difference, which is great.
He did mention this in the video. The stages you used to go through is holding the record in your hand, brush the record, zap it while it's in your hand, and then put it down on the turntable. If you put it down on the turntable first, apparently, if I thought about this for long enough, I could probably figure out why, but it wasn't able to actually dispel the static enough to make a difference. So if you're doing it, zap it in your hand, then put it down. Now you know, I guess.
Yeah, I've always been tempted to get one of these record cleaners as well. I have to admit, I'm a little hesitant to do anything with my vinyl nowadays, given the amount of pet hair in our house, and given said static cling. I mean, we're not just talking about dust. It could be a whole lot more debris on there. But I will include a link in the show notes from Pursuit Perfect System, which is about a half-hour video that shows you a full cycle care approach for your records to get as pristine audio as possible, and of course nice and warm, especially if you're using your tube amplifiers. And now for a hard turn, as they say in the biz. Will is going to bring things down a notch with a story about a comic book artist who met a tragic end, and there's some issues there around the online discourse and culture and things that people, even if they're even if they've maybe had some problematic issues or accusations thereof, things can get a little out of hand with the online bullying that can result in tragedy. Can you give us a little recap of this story, Will, and who's involved and what was going on?
Sure, yeah. The gentleman's name is Ed Piscor.
Mhm.
And he is kind of an indie darling, or was an indie darling. He was famous. I think its two most famous works were the sort of comic book that was about the history of hip hop. And Tristan, you might remember, I actually have a faceplate for one of my mixers with a bunch of his art on it. He also, probably his biggest mainstream turn was he did a whole series of X-Men comic books called Grand Design, which basically summarized three sort of iconic periods of the X-Men history. He was a brilliant artist, a very good storyteller, and it's very tragic. It's just so sad. It's one of these things where if you are experiencing problems out there, there is hope. Things do get better. And this was very, very sad. Basically, he had encountered some issues with correspondence he had had in the past with people. And he was being accused of grooming people.
So like a underaged.
Underage.
Yeah.
As the video that you have there says, from what a lawyer who was interviewed felt, I think it's that gentleman, said there was nothing actually illegal in what he was saying, but it certainly was a little bit worrisome. But it's, from the segments I saw, again, I don't know the full context, but it didn't seem horrible, maybe a little creepy, but certainly a kind of, it's one of these things where the truth doesn't matter anymore. I mean, I think whether it's crime or not doesn't matter. He lost exhibition at an art gallery. He lost a contract for $75,000. News reporters showed up at his parents' house and doxed their address and his address. And it just led to a bunch of more people jumping in and making accusations. It's just really unfortunate. And, regardless of whether he was guilty or not, he didn't deserve to die. He didn't deserve to be tormented. And, I'm always of the belief that, if there's a crime there, if there's something inappropriate there, then let's dig into it. Let's try to figure it out. But, let's not destroy someone's life or make it unlivable until we assess the full scope of things. So it's really unfortunate. And there's not really a bright side. Sorry to bring everything down, but it really is a horrible story.
So, I mean, there are some allegations of some inappropriate, communication. There was romantic relationships as well, but that doesn't appear that was with an underage individual.
No.
There were no, crimes prosecuted or anything like that, but it's just a question of the internet mob got mobilized, judge, jury, and executioner kind of thing, and this fellow ended up taking his own life. Which, sometimes when that happens, that's, maybe the behavior and or his solution to it were a sign of some underlying mental health issues, which are, sad enough in their own respect, but just the fact that he took things so hard, and whatever his, one might think of the behavior, obviously that is a pretty rough outcome. And his, he was significant from, in the cult, comic book culture, you're saying. And I think the larger case here is just like internet culture still is like the mobs is still fully in force, even in 2014, with all the lessons that we may or may have not learned over these years. Gray, do you have any perspectives on this, maybe about either the jumping to conclusion side, the mental health aspect of it, the internet culture? Any perspectives you wish to share?
I don't think so. It's one of those things I think that it's hit hard recently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I've got a whole lot to add. It's I'm sorry for everyone. I'm sorry,
No,
sorry
fair
for
enough.
loss.
Yeah, it's pretty dark for sure. All right, well, let's. How about another hard turn and
Yeah.
to something a little more joyful? And this is actually, I mean, has hell frozen over here as part of what Apple has been, contending with in the EU with the DMA, the Digital Markets Act, and then of course the increased scrutiny from in the United States from the Department of Justice. There are certain issues that they are starting to ease up on a little bit. Now, one of the ongoing issues has been regarding app stores or even any other kinds of software that were used to run other to load and run other software, or known as binaries or executable files, because Apple has traditionally looked at this sort of thing as being a pretty big security risk. iOS and iPadOS by extension have been very locked down over the years. Mac OS has gotten more locked down over time as well. And one of the casualties of such tightly locked down ecosystems where you can't, especially with iPad OS and Mac OS and of course tvOS and watchOS, is that if you don't have a way to, if you're not in the app store, the official app store, and unless you have some exotic way of doing end runs through jailbreaking or developer accounts or anything like that, one of the things you don't get to enjoy are emulators. I remember in the old jailbreaking days of iPhones, was one of the things that people were getting onto their devices was emulators so they could run retro games from the 80s, sometimes even the 90s. Well, it sounds like Apple is now allowing retro game emulators on its App Store. But of course, as always, there are some caveats. So some wording from Apple in this says, apps may offer certain software that is not embedded in the binary, specifically HTML5 mini apps and mini games, streaming games, chatbots, and plugins. Additionally, retro game console emulator apps can offer to download games. You are responsible for all such software operated in your app, including ensuring that such software complies with these guidelines and all applicable laws. Software that does not comply with one or more guidelines will lead to the rejection of your app. So this language is targeted at the developers. You must also ensure that the software adheres to the additional rules that follow in subsequent sections of the guide. And these additional rules are important to preserve the experience that App Store customers expect and to help ensure user safety. So there's still a number of questions here, but just generally speaking, with video game emulators, we remember MAME from back in the day. The multi-arcade machine emulator, that what that stood for. With any kind of retro gaming emulators, or even like computer OS emulators, you would have to acquire ROMs, which ROM short for read-only memory. Typically would refer to the old game cartridges that we would use back in the day, or and later the ISOs, or the disk images of of disk-based games that emerged on CDs, mini CDs, DVDs, and the like. And one of the big contentious issues is the black market for ROM. So how many people out there that are running these game emulators actually own the games and paid for versions of the games that for which they are acquiring the ROMs for as well? Because the argument being, well, if you own the games, then you're perfectly within your rights to find ROMs, and because you paid for the game at some point. But of course, probably the lion's share of folks out there are just hoarders of ROMs. And next thing you know, you've got, I remember back on the show we all used to work on, we had one of these multi-arcade game cabinets, and one of our colleagues had loaded about 3,000 games on there. Pretty sure that maybe all of our staff combined didn't own all those ROMs together. But Gray, this is a pretty big change for Apple here. What are your thoughts regarding the heat they've been feeling regulatory wise, and what does it mean for if things pan out like we hope for retro gaming enthusiasts?
So the scrutiny was coming. Apple exists in the same sort of fiscal space that Microsoft did in the 90s. Mm-hmm. It's nowhere near similar, but they echo each other. They rhyme, as George Lucas would say. So inevitably, antitrust is going to have to happen. Looking at this, though, this is cool. But looking at the emulator scene, FPGAs, these programmable processors that actually can properly emulate these systems, seem to me to be far more interesting. The nice thing here, though, is this is sort of the on-ramp. This is the training wheels. This is the easy access. This is the place where people who are going to be emulator snobs will be able to look down on, and that's glorious. It's great.
And so, go ahead.
It's just I don't play a whole lot of emulated games. I still have the systems that I like playing things on. That said, emulation is important, right? We cannot lose this part of our history. Because if we do, at some point, some alien race is going to show up, and the secret is going to be in a video game to stop them. If we don't have it, we're doomed.
Was that Last Starfighter reference?
That was the Last Starfighter.
Nice.
I was hoping it wasn't pixels.
Oh, I still haven't seen
Maybe the
that.
three-body problem. I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
The three-body problem is just the Last Starfighter writ large.
Now, these FPGA devices that you're referring to include such recent, very nice devices as the Analog Pocket, for example.
Yes, indeed.
Which has a lot of Game Boy aesthetic, but just modernized and and modular, so that you can replace its brain with various FPGAs and play not just Game Boy games, but a host of other sort of mostly portable console games on said device, right? So you're more leaning toward the hardware side of things, and Will, how about you? What is it, traditionally, whether it be on computer in the past or getting into the modern age on your smartphone and iPad, what has your experience been, and what is your appetite for being able to finally play some emulated retro video games on your device of choice in the Apple ecosystem, with hopefully as it plays out as we think it might?
No, I think that would be awesome. I think the big thing is working out the legality. And I think I'm like you, Tristan. I'm a big believer in paying for things that you enjoy, because people have put their time, energy, and creative forces into them. And obviously there's a line in terms of what's reasonable, and getting us to buy the White Album 17 times, or re-releasing Star Wars with a couple extra pixels is annoying. But if it's a genuine case of things that didn't previously exist, I think that I mentioned one time I bought this. Let's see if I have it hooked up, so I can only do it so much. It's this little console that has old Sega arcade games, and I bought it because it has Golden Axe 3 in it, which has not been released on anything else in all their collections, online and in on consoles and stuff. They've never released that game, and it's one that I enjoyed very much. So it's part of the reason why I bought that. I'm also, as you say, Tristan, I'm bad with money. And it's just a fun little device. But, if that was available for download, I would certainly get it. I bought X-Men Arcade at one point on my iPad, and they took that away. And also Double Dragon. So yeah, I would definitely be interested. And that is one of the problems with digital games, is sometimes they go away.
Yeah, to your point about actually buying these games or owning a copy of these games before you sort of feel ethically able to go and acquire the ROMs. I think there gets to be a point of practicality where some games you can't even find to buy anymore. And then there's also the whole notion of digital archiving, preservation of history, just like we do with old films and TV shows and the like. So making things that are part of our cultural history, because video games deserve as much a space in our cultural history as TV shows and movies, and having access to that, especially when copyright is has expired or is unclear or what have you. I mean, the Internet Archive at archive.org has all sorts vintage games on there that they are somehow able to host. And I guess with a lot of it has to do with the caveats and provisos that, you should only download if you own this, blah, 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 which people, probably just click, yeah, of course I do. Okay. Similarly with Apple's language, they're putting the onus on the developers, the distributors of said emulators. But I think the developers will also basically be telling people, oh yes, make sure that any ROMs you use have been legally acquired and rip-a-doop-a-doo. And if they were smart, a lot of these companies would make an easy way for people to be able to acquire those ROMs and pay a nominal fee. But part of the challenge is just finding out who owns the rights, especially for some of this old stuff. Now, some organizations, some companies like Nintendo have done a pretty good job of collecting past games and having them on digital stores for subsequent versions of all of their devices. So people end up often buying the same games over and over again if you can't bring them forward into future. What are you showing us there, Gray? Oh, you got the NES Mini. So there's that as well. Now, the games that are on these, like the NES Mini, the Super NES Mini, the C64 Mini, the A5, which is the Commodore 64, the A500 Mini, which is the Amiga 500, and then there's now just recently released the 400 Mini, which is like a little Atari 400. Each of those comes with a certain set of built-in games, but if I'm not mistaken, the set that they come with are all licensed. Correct, Ray?
That's correct. Yes.
But then, of course, you can always plug in a USB stick and go to town with whatever ROMs that you've acquired.
The trillions of ROMs that you've been hoarding for.
Exactly. Just contact friend of the show, Nigel, and he can hook you up. Anyhow, so I think this is, we agree that this is good news, like cautiously optimistic. Hopefully, that it's not going to be a case of Apple giveth and Apple taketh away when they get heat, because all it's going to take is for a company like Nintendo to come in and like, hey, wait a second here. Why do we have Nintendo Switch emulators on here? Because Nintendo is very protective of their IP because they've been good at monetizing their back catalog as well. So I think there's going to be a little bit of navigating to do yet in this space, but fingers crossed it all works out. Because I have hang on one second here. I sent a message through our pneumatic tube system here at Momentous HQ regarding a device that is meant to help facilitate the play and the enjoyment of retro games. And this was brought to you by an organization called Think Geek back in the day. And that is the iCade. And now I kind of got suckered. Yeah, I got suckered in by this back in the day, because when they first teased it as an April Fool's joke, they had the idea is you put an iPad in here and you run. There's some software that will support the use of Bluetooth to map to the joystick, reasonably quality arcade style joysticks and joystick and buttons in there. But the screenshot they had pasted in on the iPad was Donkey Kong, which is like one of my favorite games ever, and of course, Donkey Kong was never available in the app that you could use. There was like some other games, like it's like Missile Command, Defender, and of course there's always a number of garbage games you've never heard of before. But there was a decent selection, but of course that software never got really updated over time, and eventually it all kind of broke. So I have a special iPad, an older iPad dedicated for use with this device. So maybe if we can get things going with a new emulator, one or more emulators on iPad OS, this might breathe some new life into devices like this out there. Yeah,
that joystick only sent keyboard commands, right?
Yeah. So that's why there's some mapping issues at times. There's also a little handheld device as well that iCade did, and the folks at Think Geek. That's enough showing off for today. And now I'm out of breath. Okay, so let's move on to our next story. We're kind of getting into the gaming side here. Now, Gray, we chose this story for you specifically, but with the caveat that I know you haven't been spending as much time in Destiny lately, Destiny 2, but now we're starting to get some news on Destiny 2. The final shape is what they've been showing so far. They're enough to lure you back into the world of Destiny.
No. I was taking a well-deserved sabbatical
Mm-hmm.
because I'm going to need all of my strength for the final shape.
What is the final shape, and what at a high level? Do you have any notion of what the storyline is for this?
Yeah, so basically the traveler is this being that channels the light and basically gives the light or light-based powers to races that it comes across. Now, it has fled from something every time this calamitous thing has come behind it. Civilizations get torn up. It happened to us. This is the story of Destiny 1. And basically, we pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We have the power of the light. Destiny 2 basically has us going all across the solar system, gaining the powers of darkness as well, which are not inherently evil. And so now these paracausal entities, we have this weird thing that looks like one of the, looks like Megamind versus the Traveler, which is a giant golf ball.
All right, so we got giant blue head and a giant golf ball. Is that what's going
Yeah,
on?
the Megamind cut a hole into the glue golf ball, and now maybe Nathan Fillion is back. Basically, what it comes down to is this. The Traveler brings life. The Witness brings death and is looking to achieve the final shape, which is the totality of nothingness. On topic for the eclipse yesterday. If all of that sounds like nonsense, let me translate. Shoot, shoot, bang, bang, pew, pew, space magic, go.
All right. So, step 1, cut a hole in the golf ball. Step 2, put your light in the golf ball. Step 3, profit? No, I don't know.
Mixing witness. So yeah, it's going to be great. I'm going to love it. Yeah. You know, it's I've been kind of on a bit of a publication hiatus, little media blackout. So,
whoopsie, sorry.
No, this is good. I didn't see anything that I didn't want to see. I'm like, we good. This is you've placed the appetizers out, and I'm now starting to get the smell.
All right. Well, as they say, no one leaves the firm, Gray.
None of us is getting out of here alive. Guardian down.
And for those who are interested, Destiny 2, The Final Shape will be available on Xbox, PlayStation, and Windows PC on June 4th, 2024. Now, Will, you've found a trailer for a new Star Wars game, Star Wars Outlaws. What's the story behind this? I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, so we did have a trailer a little while back, and this is sort of the second phase. We might have even talked about it on the show. Pay attention!
155 episodes are all swirling around in there.
But this is the latest one. Also, we got a bit of a leak. I think they put this out because it was going to get leaked. And we're looking at August 30th for release. But the trailer shows us more in terms of the story. It's a lot about the underworld, and it's just really captivating. I mean,
like the criminal underworld, not
criminal underworld.
We're not talking
yes.
about like Hades or anything. Okay.
No, criminal underworld.
Or the Lycans and the vampires.
Yes, not Twilight, but yes.
I was going to Cape Beckinsale, but that works.
Right.
Yeah, but no, I just found this very compelling, and it's always been one of my things that I feel like we need to get away from space wizards and get more into the scum and villainy and the teams of people, the ragtag groups like we saw in Rogue One or in Rebels. And I think that's where there's a lot of, even though I just mentioned too, I do think there's a lot more potential there, and that's why I love this type of story. Get a little bit away from the space wizards, get more into the grounded reality of
Richard Hive.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this, and I hope this is maybe some of things that we're going to see more of in the Star Wars universe.
So you're saying it's coming out in August 30th on PS5, Xbox, Series X and Series S, and on Windows PC. So just in time for the fall as the days start getting shorter. And now will you have like burned out on Starfield by then, Will?
Probably. I'm sort of getting vaguely burnt out now. I'm moving on to other things, but I do go back and grind once in a while on that game. But I am playing some other things. Like I mentioned Void Bastards a couple weeks ago and a couple other things. I'm playing some games for my company as well. So, yeah.
All I'm hoping from a game like this is, I know he makes an appearance, but I want to be able to play as Jabba the Hutt. I want to be able to slither all over the crime underworld and boss people around. I mean, does he get up off of his chaise lounge ever?
I don't know.
I think it kind of hovers, right? He's going to sort of Chewbacca.
I'm waiting for like some giant reveal of some powers he's got or something that he can like fly around, or I don't know.
I think his powers are money. I hate to ruin things for you, but
turns out it was capitalism all along.
Yes.
Speaking of capitalism, another video game that's being turned into a movie that it's a TV show, a TV series that we've talked about previously. It's coming out on Amazon Prime, is Fallout. And Will, you have described for us your excitement about this. What have we learned from the additional information that's come out? We've heard that it's coming out Fallout TV series is coming out a day earlier than expected, so April 10th as opposed to April 11th. From the articles and the teasers and whatnot, there was a first scene that was put up on YouTube as well. How are you feeling? Are you optimistic? Are you concerned by any of the choices that you've seen? I mean, they're trying to make it a little bit tongue in cheek, not too overly serious. Does that fit with your conception of what a TV series about this legendary video game should be?
Yeah, I mean, there's humor in Fallout. There's lightheartedness. There's so I mean, what I've seen, I haven't been concerned with. I must admit, I'm on a little bit of a media blackout just because I actually want to watch it. So I haven't seen this full extended scene.
I'm trying to ruin your guys' lives here. Right?
Yeah. No, but there's definitely. I watched the first trailer and I skimmed a bit of this article just in terms of especially finding out when it's being released. But yeah, no, I am still psyched. I need to find a way of watching it because I don't currently have Amazon Prime, but I really do want to watch this, and I am very excited. And the visuals that are coming out look great. And again, the scenes that I've seen, the humor doesn't concern me. It's a very dark world, but it doesn't mean that they're not funny or lighthearted about certain things.
Yeah, like the ink spots. I don't want to set the world on fire. You've got a radio host 3 Dog. Ow, 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 3 Dog. This is the world where the 1950s went insane, and we have this massive science experiment of control vaults and not control vaults.
Yeah,
that it's like the only time you can do an experiment like this is after the nuclear holocaust, and so they did. Okay, that's batshit crazy, and funny things are going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
I
understood about a quarter of what you just said there, Gray. So
you have a dog named Dog Meat.
Yeah,
it's a funny set of games.
He's awesome,
right?
I look forward to checking out the series, even though my exposure to the game itself is 0. But that's okay.
Well, you'll have a unique view of things.
Exactly. Be like,
if Liam Neeson shows up, it's all gone sideways.
Well, I mean, if it's well done, it should appeal to folks that have no experience with the game.
Yeah.
And if it's well done, there's enough in there, like for references, Easter eggs, in jokes, and whatnot, for diehard game fans of the game as well, without alienating normies too. That's the balance that creators are trying to get, so they can get a large enough audience.
It feels a bit like Preacher. From what I've seen from here, I like it.
All right,
Will, I've got you covered on this. So.
Nice. Yeah, I would love to watch it. So if we could get together or do something like that, that would be awesome.
Let's make it so.
So in other news about Hollywood being out of ideas, we are going to see a long-awaited second installment in the the DC Ultraverse or whatever it's called. Like not part of the new the old or the new DC
The Phoenixverse
universe. Exactly. We've got Joaquin Phoenix reprising his role as Joker, and as was rumored last year, we talked about this on previous episodes of Momentous Live. Joker Folie à co-starring Lady Gaga, is going to be a musical, or at the very least have musical elements to it. Gray, being a fan and or participant in musical theater to a certain extent throughout your life, did anyone ask for this? And whether or not they did, what do you think this is going to work?
Yes, hands down. The only way that you could follow Joker is by doing something completely in the opposite direction, right? So many of the embittered folks out there latched onto this character. And I don't think that was really where the creators wanted to take it. They wanted to show this troubled strata of society. And give it a voice, but not a megaphone. And so I think this is turning this on its head, showing the madness for what it is, but also showing that, and it looks like love conquers all, question mark. I'm fascinated. I'm excited. I've seen Gaga in concert twice. I've seen Joaquin in movies many times. The confluence of these two things, what could possibly go wrong? What the world needs now is this movie.
Yeah. Will, I know you've generally tended toward Marvel historically, but I know you dabble in DC as well. What are what's your anticipation level for this different take on the Joker and Harley Quinn story?
Well, I'm a huge DC fan as well.
Okay.
I mean, I often say I'm a fan of all comic books. It's so Image, Dark Horse. I mean, I'm not just one universe. Now, I grew up on Marvel.
Gotcha.
So that was my foundation.
What's your mental taste?
Yeah, but I also I think I said this here before, and this was long before the animated series. My first comic book that I bought and read myself was actually DC's The Question, which says a lot about me as a person, I guess. But but I was a big fan of The Question. Some people get into comics through Batman or Spider-Man, and I definitely consume those things in terms of the Adam West show and things like that beforehand. But in terms of reading a comic book, it was The Question was my first comic book.
What is The Question?
Oh, The Question, is it Vic Savage or Sage? Is The Question, and he's basically a little bit. He's a detective. He has a blank face. He has sort of gadgets, and often portrayed as like a conspiracy theorist trying to get to the bottom of big issues. He was in a great run of one of the Infinity Sagas. He was one of the central characters. He was absolutely fabulous in that comic book. He was one of the, I would say, one of the best characters in the DC animated universe.
Yeah. Voiced by Jeffrey Combs. Yes.
Yep. And so I've always felt very sort of redeemed later in my life that character has actually had some really great storylines, because somehow I was really attracted to the look of the character and the darkness of the character, even though I was like 7 years old. So I really enjoyed the character.
Sure it didn't leave any marks.
He's a little like you took Dick Tracy in The Blank and you kind of did that with it.
Like a dash of Rorschach in there too, maybe?
Oh, he is. Yeah, Rorschach is based on him.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're both DC, right? Like,
yes. But The Question's been around for far longer. Like Alan Moore looked at The Question and went, this is how I'm going to represent this character in the Watchmen universe.
Yeah.
What a great character.
So just that. So Rorschach is just slightly darker, but not that much.
So for those who are maybe been exposed to Rorschach through the Watchmen movie or TV series, if you like his vibe, go back and check out the question, I guess.
Yeah.
And if you like the first Joker and you have an open mind, because some people would just be like, musical, what the heck, right? But I love it that it's challenging and it's not just doing the same thing again. It's a little bit risky. You got Todd Phillips taking another kick at the can. The first Joker movie surprised a lot of people. They did over $1 billion at the box office, and it's sort of like, it's fun. It's kind of like how Oppenheimer as well, like these kind of dark, serious movies, with not a certain amount of action, but a lot of dialogue and some complex, complicated characters as well. So it's reassuring to me that we can have movies like this and they can be successful. We don't need to underestimate the audience. And so even like the Batman movie that came out a couple of years ago that I was a huge fan of, and I'm like not even a giant superhero guy when it comes to movies. I don't really own that many of the movies, but I own the Batman, and like it's, even though it's different directors, it's a lot of similar, and they're the different DC universes. I mean, DC is doing some housekeeping, so as it stands, there's going to be 3 different DC universes going on. We've got the what's his face from Guardians of the Galaxy, the director who's taking over as
James Gunn.
Feige. James Gunn's taking over as the like the Kevin Feige of DC. We've got the Batman stuff. They're doing another Batman eventually with Robert Pattinson. We've got a second Joker, which is in a different unit. So, I mean, cool. Like, is Quentin Tarantino going to do a DC movie? Will that be his last one since he decided not to do Star Trek after all? Like, I'm all for it. It's maybe in some ways a little easier than the Marvel approach, where everything had to fit together perfectly, and just it can get a bit much to respect the canon or like alienate people when you don't by leaning on multiverses a little too hard. But anyway, so Joker Folie coming out, I believe, in October. Looking forward to that one. So that's it for our newsy stuff this week. Let's get on to our momentous picks. And Will, you got a bit of a space theme this week.
Yeah. What did I pick? I can't remember.
Space Shuttle Columbia, the final flight.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I was trying to get my screen up there. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed this. I watched the documentary on the Challenger. I think it was on Netflix a number of years ago. Hard to watch, but
you don't say.
Yeah. But I really enjoyed so far. I think we have one more episode left. I've watched 2. I'm enjoying it. Yeah, it is interesting to see how these things go wrong, and afterwards, in terms of looking back about what we should have known or shouldn't have known, and it really is, as they say, fine lines. It's really not much has to go wrong for everything to go completely wrong. So it's they say the safety in this documentary. They say the risk is one in a I think it's 1 in a million or 1 in several million for aviation, and this is 1 in 100 for something to go wrong.
I think astronaut is like technically the most dangerous job in the world, or out of the world.
Yeah, so 1 in 100. So you go up enough, and something bad is going to happen. So yeah, I mean, basically, this is the 3rd major disaster with astronauts in it, and very sad, but very interesting at the same time.
Will, should we be concerned? You've got 2 submissions this week that are a little on the side with tragic ends. Everything okay over there, bud?
Yeah. Well, I have to say that the Ed Pastor thing, I just wanted to honor him because, his name was dragged a little bit through the mud, and we really don't know enough about it. So, but yeah.
So the Space Shuttle Columbia, the final flight, it debuted on Sunday, April 7th, and hopefully it'll be in repeats on CNN and maybe through their app as well,
Yeah.
or available online.
Yeah, skip the commercials. There's a lot of freaking commercials in this
boy.
thing. If you can skip the commercials, it's like every 5 minutes. It's probably like they're hour episodes, so it's probably like 30 minutes without all the commercials.
Just do it before your Roku TV gets a firmware update.
Yeah.
All right, Gray, your momentous pick this week is one that we've talked about a little bit. It was Jerome's most anticipated pick. Did we end up talking about this last week, Will? Was it
No, I haven't seen it, so I don't.
Oh, okay. I don't know. So I guess it hasn't been a momentous pick this week. So it's all yours, Gray. I'm only 1 or 2 episodes in so far. Been enjoying it so far. What tell us about the Three Body Problem?
Three Body Problem, new television show from Netflix. Basically, it's focusing on scientists, mostly physicists, as science appears to be broken. And as some scientists commit suicide, an investigation ensues and mysteries unfold. It's great. Not as all as it seems, all is done, all is not as it seems. It's just really cool. Can't say anything more. Got to shut up. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. And for those of you who've only watched 2 episodes, go watch the rest.
So it's based on there's three books. A Chinese author whose name escapes me and whose name I would probably butcher if I tried to pronounce it anyhow. There was a Chinese version of this, but this has been remade for more of a Western or English speaking audience. International cast, from what I can tell. Again, so far sounds good. I've heard sort of mixed things about it, but I'm committed and we're going all in. Gray, if you're with us next week, I think I can guess what your pick of the week might be next week. That might also be set in space, but we'll just leave it at that.
I will say one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I did recognize Jonathan Pryce, who I didn't know was in the cast, from the back of his head. I was just like, that's Jonathan Pryce. And I don't know why I know that.
It's River's grandfather from Slow Horses. He's the High Sparrow from Game of Thrones. He was in
Brazil. Brazil. I looked at I'm like, Tomorrow Never Dies.
Right. Yeah. He's
He
everywhere.
actually kind of plays the same character as he played in Tomorrow Never Dies.
He was in the Two Popes as well. He was one of the popes. He played Pope Francis, I believe. So
he was right in that.
Yeah. Good choice. All right. I look forward to watching more of that. Maybe some tonight. Yeah. My momentous pick this week is a little bit different. It kind of loosely fits into our retro computing theme, not so much gaming, but it's an online resume for a fellow named Harry Heffernan, who I don't really know who he is, but it reminded me of some online resumes or CVs that I used to share in some of the classes, digital media classes I used to teach, where we would spend a little bit of time talking about personal branding. And I would show one example of someone who was like a product manager kind of guy, and his website looked like an Amazon page, and it was so well done. There's another fellow named Robbie Leonardi who was a designer, and his resume was like an interactive Super Mario Brothers style interactive site. It was really good. So Harry Heffernan, he takes this one level further, and you click the button on the front page, and you basically are presented with this sort of 3D view of a computer looks like from the 90s on a desk, and you click it, you mouse over it, and next thing you know, you're in Windows 95. And you can go and click on the different elements, and it looks like a website in a web browser, running you're running Internet Explorer in Windows 95 in a web browser on this virtual computer on a CRT monitor. It's pretty meta. Let's just put it that way. All the non anti-alias fonts and whatnot, everything is just delightfully trashy looking, as Windows 95 looked, and it showcased a bunch of his different design experience. It had a contact form and the like as well. You could close the windows, and then you could access some other things on this Windows 95 desktop, such as, we got double click, the Oregon Trail. You could play the Oregon Trail on there once you've done looking at the fellow's resume. It also featured, because we always need to know, will it run Doom? Well, running Doom on Windows 95 on this PC on this dude's website. And there are some other apps on there too. And I just thought from a personal branding perspective as a way to demonstrate one's expertise and in web design. It even has Scrabble on here. I thought it was pretty clever. So it's always nice to check out people's creative works. He even has a version of Wordle on here, except the catch being, spoiler alert, every word is Henry, which is his first name.
Nice.
And what's the last one? Oh, there's a credits page as well. But it's amazing. Even looking at the 1990s style web page in there, and then realizing that you're looking on that web page inside this little virtual computer on a desktop, like how far the web design has come, the interactivity, thanks to JavaScript and related technologies. It's wild. So, Will, with your web design and development background, any thoughts on this?
No, it's pretty cool. It's very interesting. It's much more experiential.
Exactly. All right, that's harryheffernan.com. And we'll have a link to that in the show notes as well if anyone's interested. Let's move on to projects this week. Will, what project you got for us?
Yeah, so I got a new looper. It is Level Up 23, and it's again, people seem to be enjoying it. I get a lot of people scratching to them and posting videos right away, and I really love it. It's very rewarding, and this one seems to be well regarded as well. So this is more of my all over the place kind of beats. So some fast, some slow, some more techno, 4 on the floor, some more trappy with the fast hats, and then some a little bit more hip hop. I'm really happy with how it turned out.
So if you want to check out such timeless classics as Dilla Manila, Literally C-List, or Wow, Okay Hippies, check out tableist.net. Now, Will, just as a quick aside, I saw you post something online recently about some of your beats being used somewhere that you maybe didn't expect.
Yeah, no, that was I was all good with it. So as a demo for a software upgrade to I'm trying to remember which software it was, to be honest, but it was basically a demo video for Bluetooth capabilities on a device and for a piece of DJ equipment, and they used one of my beats, and I was super thrilled about that. So it's just, I do this for the love of it, and to see people dig them and choose them out of all the thousands of beats on Table Beats is a big honor. So I was actually super psyched about it. So
super cool. Any idea how they found you or found your beats?
I think they just were looking around, and it was one that they liked. I know I do have a good relationship. I think I have a good relationship with the person who runs Table Beats. I talk to him sometimes, and his name is Daniel, and he might have suggested it. I'm not sure. He didn't say anything about it. I know he has put my beats forward for other things, which I can't talk about. But so I mean, I am thrilled that it was used in that way, and I'm okay with it. And so that's what it's all about is having people listen to them. And obviously, I enjoy doing it, and it's therapeutic for me, quite honestly. But it is also a big kick when you see people scratching to them or people choosing them for projects and things like that. So, yeah.
Very cool. So that, once again, tableist.net, and search for Molotov. Now, Gray, I don't think you have any official updates or projects for us this week, but can you let us know what's going on behind the scenes and when we might expect to see soon?
It will be next week for sure. I was just working on updating some photography. It's one of those things where you look at some things and you're like, the consistency here is not good. So,
and that will be on wub.today soon.
Wub.today.
Nice. All right. Our missing fourth quarter, who we've heard may be joining us again in a couple of weeks, Tasia Custodi, has once again another weekly YouTube video for us. Another back to Google themes, lamenting the loss of Google Podcasts. So another for the the Google graveyard. And I think last week we talked about the hundreds of projects that Google has launched and killed over the years, be they software, hardware, otherwise. And that's just a function of their culture and the experimental nature. But I don't know how many people were using Google Podcasts. I think Tasia was. So she also appeared on the Daily Tech News Show on Friday. And if you tune into that episode, we'll include a link in the show notes there. She reveals what she chose to replace Google Podcasts. And you can find out more about her, of course, at www.tasiacustodi.com or youtube.com/tasiacustodi. And I forgot to put it on the screen, but back to Will, tablist.net /artist/Molotov. And speaking of Tasia, she and I have our little side gig going at AI named this show. And our latest episode is Google AI and the Rebirth of Search. So a bunch of Google news, among other things, in our latest episode there. And you can find out what we're doing there and follow us and blah, blah, blah at www.ainamedthisshow.com. And if you want to follow what we're doing here on YouTube and in our podcast version and so on, you can follow us here at momentous.tv. And that's it.
Cool.
Good to have you back, Ray.
Yes.
We've got some movie watching to do soon, and maybe it'll inform some of our future momentous picks.
Yes.
But, thanks for coming out, and thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And until next time, we hope your week is truly momentous.